Hello, hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Happy Tuesday! And welcome to the, I think, third Golden Terrace live stream. I could check real quick. Hang on. Which one are we on? Yep, we're on the third one. Just checking real quick. Welcome to the third Golden Terrace live stream. And also, welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my basement, but there's lots of books and I make it work. If you couldn't already tell, this is a pretty chill live stream. I'll be responding in the comments like right now. Hi, Chi-Chi Kiki. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. And if you celebrated May the 4th be with you, or Cinco de Mayo. I hope you had a wonderful time. And even if you didn't, I hope you had a great day. But I will be making side comments. It's a pretty chill time. If that's not really your flavor, that's totally cool. Maybe stick around, see if you enjoy it. And if not, I totally get it. We're here just kind of to have a good time, enjoy the story, enjoy the company. In regards to Golden Terrace, I do not own anything. I'm not getting anything from this other than the satisfaction of doing a good job, hopefully. So please don't come at me about copyright. In a less professional or legal sense, you are probably noticing my voice is a little different tonight. I have gotten a summer spring cold, but it doesn't hurt. It might just be a little more raspy than usual. Hello, Mars Rover. I hope you are also doing well and having a wonderful day and had a wonderful weekend. But yes, I'm going to do my best with my voice. It just might be a little more woo today. So, yeah. Did anybody do anything interesting or special over the weekend? Just real quick, because I like checking up on all of you, seeing what's new in your lives. Anything fun? I know I made like 47 bracelets for a convention I'm going to. So that was intense. But they're done. They're ready. It'll be a good time. But yeah. I'm excited. Unlike last time, because these are shorter streams, it's not this Thursday, but it would be next Thursday. I'm half on the fence about doing it. Because that Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, will be the start of the convention weekend. I think I'm still gonna do our Thursday live stream because this is today, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday. I mean, I could, and then it would just be a week. We'll see. All right. If you want to, you can go ahead and post what's been up with you in your lives in the comments in the chat. But let's go ahead and get started. Last time we kind of ended on a very interesting note where we found out that in that small secretive village where for some reason they have white night dew flowers and powder, they ended up killing a Buddhist. They believe that the Taoist, not Buddhist. It's different. There was a Taoist that visited the village that knew some pharmacology. He figured out that some of the kids were suffering from withdrawal, and he brought out a chunk of white dew powder and gave it. Autumn white is worth its weight in gold. They killed him. They chopped him up, threw him in the river, and then all of a sudden, the people that did that got sick, and they were like, oh my god, it's a curse. And then now it's like, oh my god, it's a plague. So they keep sacrificing these people to the river, because if they bring it up with a magistrate, the whole village is going to die. But they rescued the husband of Miss Oi. Oh, I'm going to just say Miss Oi. And they had kind of the same situation with Kai Yue, where it was like, please, 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 like, my husband, he's going to be fine. Please save him. And Fu Shen pitied her, but was about to make a promise when he was stopped by a look from Yan Xiaohan. His illness is infectious. However pitiful, we still can't allow him to leave alive. He didn't keep his voice low. Miss Oi heard him perfectly. She was utterly devastated, but in the end she couldn't persuade the stone-hearted Fei Long guard. She was dragged out by Fu Shen and watched as Yan Xiaohan found dry wood for kindling and spread it out. Shortly, thick smoke was rising into the sky. The Fox Immortal Temple had become a sea of flame. Oh yeah, there was also that whole legend about the Fox Immortal, warning of a calamity, and then the temple that was being worshipped at for it got struck down. There's been some mystic aspects at this temple, so now it's in flames. Fu Shen gave her a weighty purse and calmly said, your road is still long. Go somewhere else and get married again to a good man. One day you'll be able to forget him. Having said this, he turned and walked into the boundless night with Yan Xiaohan. Miss Oi clutched her purse in her hand. Her eyes reflected the golden red flames. After a long time, she whispered in answer, I can't forget. How could there be a rest of her life after such calamity? In this world, it was the one who went first who didn't look back, and the one left behind who was most pitied. Okay, and that is where we start today, at chapter 57. They didn't speak at all on the return trip. They returned to the inn, closed the door, and lit the lamp. Fu Shen sat in a chair after bathing, staring blankly into space. Yan Xiaohan only came out when quite a while had passed and hugged him from behind, putting his chin on the wet top of his head. Quietly, he asked, feeling unhappy? Fu Shen loosely encircled his fingers, feeling so frustrated that his hair was about to start falling out. What do you call this? I didn't do the deed, but the responsibility is still mine. Yan Xiaohan hummed in agreement. Fu Shen waited for him to continue, but no matter how long he waited, nothing came. He couldn't resist lifting his face slightly. Don't you have something to say? What do you think I'm going to say? Yan Xiaohan answered languidly. Say that I'm soft-hearted, said Fu Shen, snatching up blame, always taking everything onto myself, that kind of thing. Yan Xiaohan laughed quietly and said, since you already know, why would I need to add anything? That's not what I wanted to say. Then what did you want to say? Said Fu Shen. This isn't the capital. There's no Marquise of Jinning Manor for you to draw on. Gleefully, Yan Xiaohan said. When the Lord Marquise was being so generous, only thinking of kindness and charity, I suppose you didn't remember that that was all the money for traveling expenses you had brought along? Fu Shen was brought up short. He really hadn't remembered. No amount of money will stand up to this kind of spending. As the proverb rightly says, the lack of a bit of money can take down even a hero. Yan Xiaohan sighed affectedly. However, your pocket change must be worth all I have. Presumably, you won't have to bend and scrape over a few dozen pounds of rice, right? Fu Shen narrowed his eyes, looking murderous. Feeling fractious again? Times have changed, Yan Xiaohan said unhurriedly. Glaring at me won't work now. You'd be better off begging me. Maybe I'd be willing to lend you a bit. Fu Shen might be said to have lived the experience of Master Dongguo being nearly eaten by the wolf he had helped hide. The ungrateful wolf in question was smiling like a fox demon. Yan Xiaohan drew close to his ear and gently kissed him, enticingly saying, "Or perhaps the Lord Marquis can sell his body." "I don't sell." Fu Shen's fingers rolled up a drooping strand of his hair. He turned his head to touch his lips. "I only take valuables by coercion." Yan Xiaohan sighed, seemingly very distressed. He bent down to pick him up and walked to the bedside. A little helplessly, he said, "Then you can take sex by coercion too while you're at it." Only when the sky began to brighten up did the gasps inside the bed curtains at last gradually quiet. Fu Shen was so tired he fell asleep the moment he put his head down. His last thought, before he sank into the land of dreams, was to suspect that he had left his brain behind in the Fox Immortal Temple. Taking sex by coercion? In the end, hadn't it still been Yan Xiaohan taking advantage of him? How was this any different from selling his body? They had stayed up too late romping the night before. The next day, Yan Xiaohan for once slept in along with Fu Shen. When he opened his eyes, Fu Shen still hadn't woken up. Sound asleep, he looked a little more docile than normal, and his body was soft, making it impossible for idle hands to resist wanting to pinch his cheeks. Yan Xiaohan stared at him for a while, but he still didn't wake up. His vigilance had decreased sharply. It was evident he was truly exhausted. Making allowances for how hard he had worked, Yan Xiaohan held off and didn't tease him. He quietly got up and washed and then went out. First, he went to Guangfang County's money shop to send word to Prince Qi and arrange to meet in Jingshou, and then drew some money from the cashier and filled up another purse. On the way back to the inn, there was a whole street selling breakfast. Yan Xiaohan went through it, picking and choosing, and brought some food, which was still warm when he bought it, back to the inn. Fu Shen was awoken by the aroma of meat buns. Blearily, he sat up, hugging the quilt. "Mengui?" "Mm-hmm." Mengui ladled out a bowl of hot water and sat on the bed to wipe his face. "You're getting up late today, so eat a little something to fill your stomach, then have lunch a little later." Fu Shen leaned dizzily against him, the warmth of the bedding still on him. Hoarsely, he said, "Did you go to the money shop?" Yan Xiaohan's hands didn't stop moving. "Yes. How did you guess?" Fu Shen laughed wearily. "You reek of riches." Yan Xiaohan deliberately got up to mischief, reaching into the quilt to rub a certain unspeakable place. "What's this about? You've just woken up, and I see you haven't put your tail away yet." The two of them fooled around for a while. Fu Shen at last woke up from his daze, got cleaned up properly, and sat at the table to eat breakfast. In the capital, in front of all the servants, they each kept up a proper attitude of silence at meals, quiet in bed. Now that it was only the two of them, they weren't so mirrored in etiquette. Fu Shen swallowed a mouthful of porridge and said, "When are you planning to go meet Prince Qi?" Yan Xiaohan gave him a peeled salted duck egg. "Tomorrow. The matter of Shishan village resolved. Our assignment has been halfway accomplished. The rest will depend on how the local officials deal with it. What about you? Are you going with me or returning to the capital?" Fu Shen brought down his chopsticks and pricked the egg, coming up with clear oil. At Yan Xiaohan's words, he raised his eyebrow and asked in turn, Lord Yan, am I a family member you're taking along on assignment outside the capital? Aren't you? Yan Xiaohan lost no opportunity to show off his status. With emphasis, he said, You really are a family member. This manner was a far cry from his usual one, earnest to the point of foolishness, and also a little cute. Fu Shen's heart softened. Fine, master. I've even thrown away my mask. I certainly can't go see them like this. Why don't you hide me in your purse and carry me to Jingshou? Sorry. I told you. I apologize now. As soon as Yao Xiaohan heard his mocking tone, he knew there was no chance. Grumbling, he said, You have to see things through. My craving hasn't healed yet, and you already want to leave. Do I owe you anything more? Fu Shen said. It's already good of me to be treating it for you. Anyway, your craving is already under control. It won't get better. All you can do is pout and sulk. While his tone was chiding, his doting intolerance were evident at a glance. This enumeration of his wrongs made Yan Xiaohan feel wonderful. He stopped pretending to feel aggrieved. Knowing himself to be very understanding and considered, he asked, Then where are you going next? Back to Beiyuan? On the day of Taoist Chun Yang's execution, I said that I was planning to start my investigation in Xinyan. Fu Shen said, Since I've come all this way, I'll go look now while I'm at it. No. I'll go have a look while I'm here. Yan Xiaohan immediately became nervous and said categorically, That won't do. If Xinyan really is the source of Autumn Night White, it's too dangerous for you to charge in single-handed. Fu Shen said, When we talked about what happened last summer, I thought later that, His Majesty was obviously targeting the Beiyuan cavalry at the time. It was also not an inconsiderable warning for armed forces everywhere. Xinyan has been a law unto itself for many years. Xinyan. And it has been a commandery prince who doesn't belong to the royal family, who is also a former subordinate of Beiyuan. In that way, it would make sense to view Autumn Night White as Xinyan's retaliation against the court. On this point, he and I are in the same boat. He won't do anything to me. There is no need for concern. As soon as Fu Shen made a decision, he would only give a token notice. He had no intention of discussing it with anyone. Yan Xiaohan knew his temperament and had a profound feeling of the arm being unable to persuade the leg. There was nothing else he could do. He had to agree. As for what to do in the capital, have you already made arrangements? I claimed to be convalescing and found someone to pretend to be me. Fu Shen crooked his lips calmly. I figure His Majesty doesn't have time to attend to me now. He's ill. The next day, the two of them packed up their dry provisions and traveling money and left the inn. They sped off in the direction of Jingshou, riding abreast. Fu Shen was heading to Xinyan, continuing west after parting with Yan Xiaohan outside Jingshou city. While Yan Xiaohan rode into the city alone and went straight to the official post station where Prince Qi was staying. The two met again and benefited from each other's assistance. During his days in Guangfang County, Yan Xiaohan had suffered quite a bit of torment from Autumn Night White and lost a considerable amount of weight. As soon as Prince Qi saw his haggard look, he knew he hadn't been lying. Hearing him tell the story of Jishan village and describing all the appalling miseries he was involuntarily filled with righteous indignation. He banged on the table and jumped to his feet. Living people sacrificed to ghosts. How can such daring, ignorant masses exist in this empire? Yan Xiaohan said. The disastrous consequences of autumn night white are endless. It isn't only the case in Xishan village. The shortfall of grain taxes in Jingshu are also connected to it. The local official has been aware of it and hasn't reported it. The common people have abandoned their fields to plant this drug. Your Highness ought to use this case as an opportunity to clear the air, prohibit autumn night white. Good luck with that. If it's really like what we think it is, which, like, in this case, there actually was an opium epidemic in China in ancient times. So if this is like pseudo-opium, good luck with that. Prince Qi and his party also hadn't been idle during their days in Jinshu. He was already aware of everything Yan Xiaohan was saying. All he had been missing was the firecracker wick of Xishan village. As soon as this case was reported to the court and began to get settled, the officials of Jingshu were bound to be mopped up and left in disorder. Before they had left the capital, the empress had been ordered to commit suicide, and the crown prince had fallen out of favor. The crown princess, Lady Sen's father, was the military commander of Jingshu, Sen Hongfeng. It could be gathered that after the Jingshu case, the crown prince being removed from his position would be a foregone conclusion. Prince Qi immediately summoned Jingshu's prefect to come see him. Reporting above and transmitting down, the case of Xishan village was all wrapped up on the same night. All the villagers were taken under escort to Guangfang County's Yemen to be interrogated. The Guangfang County magistrates had been lax in their jurisdiction. They might not be able to keep their own positions. For the sake of accounting for himself in front of Prince Qi, Zhang Shuo's prefect didn't dare to let them perform interrogations behind closed doors. So he made bold to ask Prince Qi and the group of Phelan guards he had brought with him to cooperate with Jingshuo's officials and listen in on the hearings. Prince Qi was just in a temper. He also wanted to personally watch the evildoers being put to death. Yan Xiaohan was concerned that there would still be sick people among the villagers and afraid something would go wrong, so he gave a few words of tactful advice. For Prince Qi had made up his mind and steeled his heart. He insisted on going in person. There was nothing Yan Xiaohan could do. He could only return to Guangfang County alongside him. When they left the official post station, there had happened to be many pedestrians outside, all making a racket. While the guards fell into formation, Yan Xiaohan turned his back to the street and suddenly felt someone gently bump into him from behind. His first thought was that this was a thief. He automatically reached back to arrest them, but came up empty. Next, a small purse fell into his hand. A low, close voice said behind him, "Your Honor, you dropped something." Yan Xiaohan whipped his head around, nearly twisting his neck. This person was dressed all in black, wearing a bamboo hat on his head that hid the upper half of his face, revealing only a smooth, gaunt chin and neck. Seeing Yan Xiaohan look his way, the corners of his lips rose slightly in a smile. He didn't say anything else, only discreetly withdrew back into the crowd. In the blink of an eye, he was gone without a trace. Yan Xiaohan was taken aback. "Your Honor," a subordinate's voice brought him back to his senses. "We can set out now." Yan Xiaohan was distracted. He casually nodded and agreed, then leapt onto his horse. On the way, he quietly opened the little purse and had a look. Inside the bag was full of glittering and translucent osmanthus candy. Hadn't he gone to Xinyan? In broad daylight, with everyone watching, the mighty Marquis of Jinning had taken part in this kind of illicit handoff. It honestly made one hardly know how best to love him. Okay, real talk. All these games, all these Chinese things, all these Asian things, they always are talking about osmanthus. Osmanthus this, osmanthus wine, osmanthus jelly, osmanthus candy. What does that even taste like comparison-wise? Because I have looked, and I cannot find osmanthus anything. If anyone knows what it actually tastes like in relation to anything else other than just osmanthus, please let me know. Hang on, tea break. Actually, I'm going to blow my nose too. No need to be more raspy than I already am. See, it sucks because, I don't feel bad, I just sound horrible. Chapter 58. On the public road for Jingshou to Kuaizhou, a skinny horse was traveling at a steady pace. The man on the horse was wearing a bamboo hat to protect him from the sun, watching the scenery in boredom as he tossed sweet and crispy sesame pastries into his mouth. Soon, a whole bag of sesame pastries was gone. He took a pot of water from his saddlebag and gulped down several big mouthfuls. Disdainfully, he clicked his tongue. What the hell are these? Sickeningly sweet. This was Fu Shen. 2 days ago, after parting ways with Yan Xiaohan outside of Jingshou City, he had gone 2 li away, then deliberately turned back, just so he could tease him outside the gate of the post station. While buying the osmanthus candy, he'd happened to see sesame pastries next to them. So, his interest aroused, he had bought a bag, planning to eat them as a snack on the road. Thinking about it now, he had no especial fondness for sweets. He might go 3 to 5 months without eating a piece of candy. But the sesame pastries purely because his brain had been addled by the fragrance of the osmanthus candy. The trip from Jingshou to Kuaishou, which was at the center of Xinjiang, wasn't long. At top speed, it would only take 3 days. But Fu Shen traveled for 6 days. It had been years since he had been so free from concerns, slowly traveling the world at liberty. Though Fu Shen was still young, he had spent close to half his lifetime being pushed beyond his capacity, busy and bustling, commanding battles and death. Never mind pretty wives and beautiful mistresses, he couldn't even come home once a year. The Jingshou trip had changed both him and Yan Xiaohan considerably. Perhaps it was because each had at last found somewhere to place his trust, somewhere to belong, understood that in its lengthy passage through the mundane world, he wasn't alone walking a solitary path. Hang on. Sometimes in tea shops and public houses in villages and towns along the road, Fu Shen heard some news from Jingshou, such as that after the Jishan village case had been discovered, the local officials had sent people to dredge the lake, and they had come up with 12 bodies. It was said that neither insects nor fish lived in that lake, only a kind of aquatic plant that could grow wildly, obtaining its nutrients from corpses. It had wrapped the bodies up so tightly that they floated in the water like a corpse forest that never saw the light of day. That's gruesome and disturbing. There were also people who said that the imperial envoy who had come from the capital had run into heavy rain on the road and stayed the night at a fox immortal temple. Suddenly, a little fox entered his dreams and spoke in a human tongue, recounting grievances. When the imperial envoy woke, he marveled greatly and sought out the Shishan village, according to what the fox had said, unearthing a major case. Listening to this, Fu Shen laughed to himself, thinking, "What the fox said? Wasn't it more like what the bull shat?" Okay. I've never had osmanthus, but a few searches indicate that it tastes like a bitter mixture of apricot and peach with floral notes. See, like, that sounds amazing. Like, I would love to try it. Why is that not a thing? Like, we've got so many other flavors, but, like, they talk about it so much and a lot of different things, like you'd think. All right, rant over. Thank you, Mars Rover. Most likely some storyteller in Jingshou City had seen that there was a fox immortal temple beside the lake and applied a strained interpretation, casually making something up. The storyteller, Yan Xiaohan, couldn't take being thought about like this. He turned his head away and sneezed. The tip of his brush shook, leaving an ink blot on the snow-white paper. His halfway written memorial to the throne was completely ruined. He tossed away the memorial and switched to a new sheet of paper. Jingshou's perfect had moved quickly enough. In 6 days, he had just about finished investigating the case and presented a dossier of confessions, testimony, and material evidence to the Ministry of Justice so that they could determine the sentences. In about 2 days, it would reach the capital. He had observed Fu Shen's role in the memorial, only mentioning that they had nearly been struck by lightning in the Fox Immortal Temple, and had therefore by chance ended up in Shishan village. Yan Xiaohan had heard the legend of the Fox Immortal Temple, so after sending off Prince Qi, he had returned to Shishan village to investigate. Though he had been dosed with autumn night white, he had managed by good fortune to escape alive. In short, owing entirely to the protection of heaven, they had finally succeeded in discovering the truth and causing the murderers and evildoers to be put to death. When he was finished unflappably making things up, Lord Yan ordered a subordinate to send the memorial to the capital. Prince Qi must also have had a memorial to send, but because the imperial investigator had the right to have his memorials come directly before the emperor, the two of them wouldn't be using the same channel, and Yan Xiaohan didn't go find out. He went to the window and looked out over the shade of trees everywhere. He slowly let out a long breath. He felt his hands shaking again, so he took a piece of candy from the purse and pressed it beneath his tongue. The refreshing sweetness of osmanthus flavor spread. Perhaps because of the influence of the craving, he thought that he had never missed a person so much, missed him so much that it made his heart ache. They had only been apart for 6 days. Fu Shen had once again demonstrated his surpassing foresight. Yan Xiaohan's cravings had yet to completely subside. Though it wasn't serious, once Fu Shen left and he lost his support, enduring the cravings when it flared up suddenly became difficult. Fortunately, he still had that bag of osmanthus candy, which gave him a bit of consolation. Yan Xiaohan developed a habit of subduing the craving with candy, but for a body that had tasted true delight, this was no different from a cup of water tossed on a flaming cart. Physical suffering and spiritual suffering combined. Sometimes he wanted nothing more than to cast Prince Qi aside and go alone in pursuit to Shinan. Oh my gosh, me and these cities. If only the case here in Jingshou wrapped up soon. It's Zinan. When he returned to the capital, he might be able to find another assignment and go to Zinan. The thought was a nice one, but bitter reality told him, keep dreaming. Within a couple of days, a special envoy from the capital arrived in Jingshou with an imperial edict, first stripping the perfect country magistrates, and all the other officials of their officials' black gauze caps, leaving them to await punishment, then ordering the chief culprits from Zishan village to be sent under escort to the capital. Finally, there was a special edict directly to Prince Qi and Yan Xiaohan in particular. Starting in the third month, white dew powder had turned up again and again, leading to a series of terrible disasters. First it was the capital, and then it was Jingshou. Back during the Jinwu Guard case, Yan Xiaohan had already sent up a memorial to the throne, asking the emperor to order a strict investigation into white dew powder throughout the county and country in order to prevent further trouble. He hadn't expected his words to become a prophecy. Emperor Yuntai's illness had not yet made him senile. Autumn Night White had already spread unchecked to the point of impacting the grain taxes in Jingshu. East of Jingshu was the area of Huguan, Jiangnan, and Jiangxi, the granary of the empire, important locations for government retinue. If this was allowed to continue and these places suffered from the murderous scheme, instability would spread to the whole nation. Therefore, Emperor Yuntai had issued another decree, ordering Prince Qi and Yan Xiaohan not to return to the capital after completing their assignment, but to follow the Yangtze River east, make an inspection tour of the area of Jiangnan, be sure to eliminate any lurking threat from Autumn Night White. He granted them freedom to act expeditiously, to meet emergencies, cut first, and report later. Like a snow-blight flash of lightning in midair, the unexpected blow fell. Lord Yan's tattered wishes whirled and scattered in Jingshou's warm spring breezes along with his tears. Poor dude just wants to spend time with his husband. The emperor's like, nah. There's a drug epidemic. You're not going anywhere except that way. Xinyan. Kuaishou. Riding his skinny horse, Fushen slowly entered the city. Here, Han people lived in large part together with Miao, Bai, and other such people. The scenery and style was very different from the Central Plains. Fushen had previously come up with many methods for going to see Commandery Prince Ziping, but when he got to the main gate of the prince's manor, he tossed all his previous ideas to the back of his head and boldly walked up to the porter. Putting a hand to his bamboo hat, he lowered his head slightly and said, "Please convey that I request to see Commandery Prince Ziping." As the proverb says, the Prime Minister's door warden is self-important enough to be a petty official. While the Commandery Prince Manor's porter wasn't even as snobbish as a watchdog in the capital, Fushen had a poverty-stricken look and was hiding his face with the bamboo hat. He didn't look like he was in any position to be in contact with their master. The porter raised his eyelids indifferently and extended a hand. "Calling card," he said. Fushen had seen plenty of servants like this. He tipped a fragment of silver out of his purse and put it into the porter's coarse palm. Smiling, he said, "I have no calling card. Just say that Beiyuan Army Doctor Du Lang has come to pay a visit." The porter weighed the silver in his hand. Happiness flashed over his face. His manner was still haughty, but his tone had relaxed. "Wait here a moment. I'll go notify His Highness." Not long after, the porter returned with a tense look. This time he didn't dare to make a peep. Bowing and scraping, he asked Fushen to come inside, leading him into the main courtyard's west drawing room. There was already someone waiting for him inside. Commandery Prince Ziping, Duan Gao Hong was nearly 50, but well preserved, his figure slender and vigorous, his visage still what it had been in the prime of his life. Huh. We don't have osmanthus-flavored things in the West due to it growing exclusively in Asia. We would have to import it, and that would only happen if lots of people wanted it. It's a pity. I would love to try it. Right? I mean, like, I'm lucky enough to have an Asian market where I have access to some more obscure things and flavors, but I'm just like, come on. Like, just a little. Like, come on. I would also really love to try it. I agree. Okay. So his visage was still what it had been in the prime of his life. Staring at this black-clothed man wearing a bamboo hat, his slanted brows came together slightly. Doubtfully, he said, "Who are you?" Fu Shen took off the bamboo hat, revealing his face, and smiled politely and sincerely at him. "I have taken the liberty of disturbing you. Please do not take offense, Your Highness." Duan Guaohong was silent. First, he froze. Then he immediately dismissed all the servants and tightly shut the doors and windows. His brows had nearly tied themselves into a fast knot. "General Fu has suddenly graced my humble abode with his presence. I wonder what valuable instruction you wish to impart?" "No valuable instruction." Fu Shen familiarly pulled up a chair and sat down. "Don't be such a stranger, Your Highness. You're a family elder for me. You can address me by my courtesy name." Duan Guaohong's gaze traveled down, staring fixedly at his legs. Jin Yuan, weren't you in the capital convalescing? What brings you to Xinyan?" Fu Shen picked up his hems and showed him his boots. Carelessly, he said, "The wounds are nearly healed. As for what I'm doing here, wouldn't you know that better than me?" Ooh, he's calling him out. Duan Guaohong's eyes grew cold. His whole bearing was reserved and dignified. When he clashed with Fu Shen, neither of them yielded one bit. He coldly said, "What are you saying?" "Oh, that's not right. Your Highness probably only knows about me being in Jingshao." Fu Shen slapped his thigh. "Would you look at this memory of mine? I only told Du Lang that I was going to Jingshou to find Yan Xiaohan. Forgot to tell him that I was also going to stop in at Kuaishao on the way." Smiling, he continued, "How about it? Your Highness doesn't seem very fond of me." Duan Gaohong was briefly silent. Seeming to abandon his feigned civility, he got straight to the point and asked, "When did you find out?" The smile on Fu Shen's face did not alter, but the smile in his eyes was entirely gone. There was even an imperceptible chill in his voice. "I've found out quite a lot. What does your Highness mean? Is it planting Du Lang beside me or sending Taoist Chun Yang to assassinate His Majesty at the vast longevity feast? Or is it perhaps deliberately spreading autumn night white in Jingshu, planning to flip the game board, throw the whole area of Jiangnan into total chaos?" Each and every word he spoke was like a sword leaving its sheath, ruthlessly stabbing Duan Gaohong's taciturn and tolerant bottom line. Commander Prince Ziping had commanded troops for many years. His disposition was resolute and serious. Though he had developed a bit of self-restraint in recent years, even that depended on whom he was facing. Yet Fu Shen still seemed completely indifferent, recklessly determined to pluck the tiger's whiskers. Gritting his back molars, Duan Gaohong said, "Fu Shen, aren't you Afraid that you won't walk out this door today? Would you look at that? What a coincidence! I wasn't planning on walking out this door today, Fu Shen said boldly, confident that right was on his side. I came to Kuai Shao with a limited traveling money, and I was just worrying about having no place to stay and planning to stay some nights in your distinguished home. Would your highness permit it? Duan Gao Hong didn't answer. Everything he said was choked off by Fu Shen. Though Fu Shen hadn't come as an enemy, he still felt like he was about to faint. When he had managed to even out his breathing, Duan Gao Hong, trying to be even-tempered and good-humored, said, "Since you know about all of that, you must also understand that I don't want to harm you." Naturally, said Fu Shen, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. Duan Gao Hong's expression relaxed slightly. He sat down across from him. Compared to everything the Emperor has done to the Beiyuan cavalry, what I have done is only a drop in the ocean. The Beiyuan commander is sitting in front of you, Fu Shen said coldly. Though I've been lamed, I'm not dead yet. Your Highness, you want to take revenge on behalf of the Beiyuan army. But have you asked what I want? Hello, Sour Sore. Oh, I finally managed to catch a live here. Time to sit. And hello to you too. Welcome. I'm really glad you could catch a live too. As you've probably noticed, my voice is a little different tonight. I happened to catch a spring cold, but it just might affect the tone a little. I might be coughing a little more. Might need 1 or 2 more tea breaks, but I hope you enjoy listening in and it's not too disappointing for your first live experience with me. And we're also at chapter 59. Thank you very much. It's just one of those winter seasonal colds. I'm feeling relatively okay, but it sounds worse than I feel. But thank you very much. And there's definitely lemon and honey in this tea. Don't you worry. All right. Chapter 59. Fu Shen turned nasty just like that, the hit taking Duan Gao Hong's unaware. Commandery Prince Zipeng's expression, having just eased, immediately became fixed on his face. Coming to this reading with no context, and I'm here for it. Welcome. All good. Basically, he's calling the commander out on his shit for basically introducing opium into the nation to screw with the emperor. That's basically what's going on. And the commander's like, excuse me, you're saying you did it for our army. Did you ask me, the commander, what's up first? And he's saying no. When I was serving in the Beiyuan army, you were still an unweaned infant. Fu Shen returned the compliment. When I took over the Beiyuan army, you had already been breeding fish in Xinan for many years. Yeah. Oh crap, that's big, right? He's kind of a badass. Little hellion with an exaggerated opinion of himself, thought Duan Gao Hong. Old fool trying to exploit his seniority, thought Fu Shen. Only at times like this did Yan Xiaohan's worth become clear. That's his husband, Yan Xiaohan. When two foul-tempered people were steadfastly unwilling to give way, they needed a smooth-talking person to brush aside the conflict for them and let the conversation continue. Unfortunately, Yan Xiaohan wasn't here. Fu Shen inhaled and exhaled silently, calming his anger, repeatedly telling himself that he had come here in search of the truth. He couldn't waste time getting angry at a stubborn and bossy old geezer. Pardon. Finally, he turned his face back and afforded him a narrow step to get a foothold on. Your Highness's feelings for the Beiyuan army are profound, a very rare thing to come by. Panting with rage, Duan Gao Hong took advantage of this opening and said, "The Beiyuan cavalry was built by me and people like me. According to generational ranking, you ought to be calling me uncle." Fu Shen cursed inwardly. "Old fool, trying for every scrap of ground you can get," he thought bitterly. Aloud, however, he dryly said, "I see. I'd heard that you were like brothers with my late father and uncle." But Duan Gao Hong shook his head. "No." Said Fu Shen. "The generational ranking I'm talking about starts from your grandfather, the former Duke of Ying." Duan Gao Hong's voice softened. "During the time of the late emperor, Duke Fu served as military commissioner of Lingnan. He received orders to pacify the rebellion of the Beiyue people of Lingnan. Later, when the court's troops had won an overwhelming victory and Duke Fu led people in cleaning up the rebel forces, he found among the disordered troops a young child. According to the court's usual practices, all Beiyue rebel soldiers were captured, and the adults killed on the spot, and the boys under 10 castrated and sent to be slaves in the palace. That's pretty brutal. The child that General Fu captured happened to be exactly 10 years old, unusually thin and weak. General Fu pitied him, and his compassion was stirred. He couldn't bear to let the child die by the sword, so he made an exception and left him alive, releasing him to make his own way. At this point, Fu Shen could already guess faintly what this would follow. Duan Gao Hong saw this and candidly acknowledged, "My birth name was Feng Yi. I was of the Beiyue people. I was rescued by Duke Fu and narrowly escaped death. At 15, I changed my name and enlisted among General Fu's troops, waited upon him, charged the enemy lines. Duke Fu saw me as his own son and took special care to promote and educate me. In the second year of Yun Tai, when the Tartars and the Zi invaded the border, Duke Fu was transferred and became the military commissioner of Gongshao, and I followed him there and led troops, galloped among the grasslands and fought back the enemy with Bokun and Zhang Yan. Bokun was Fu Tengshang's courtesy name, and Zhang Yan was Fu Tingxian's. So those are his uncles and father. In the 5th year of Yun Tai, or actually that might be his grandfather, when Duke Fu passed away into the west, it happened to coincide with unrest in Xinan. Oh my god. Before his passing, he submitted a memorial to the throne, electing me as commander-in-chief of the Western Expeditionary Army, to lead the army to pacify Xianan. I wasn't struggling last time with that. Xinan. Whatever. With a sigh, Duan Gao Hong said, "I did not dare to fail a deathbed request. I have stood guard in Xinyan ever since, not taking a step out. Only last summer, when His Majesty conceived the design of sending military supervisors to all the troops guarding the borders, and then soon after you were ambushed in Kingsha Gap, did I finally understand that today's court was no longer the court it had once been." "Your Highness," Fu Shen said, interrupting him, "Du Lang entered the Beiyuan army 2 years ago, and moreover, my guess is that he is not your only spy in the Beiyuan army. You say that you only started getting ideas last summer. Isn't that a little late?" The general opinion of Fu Shen was mostly that he was a hero skilled in making war, decisive in felling enemies. After hearing enough of opinions like this, sometimes it would make one think that while the Marquis of Jinling might be good at fighting, he was only a plain soldier, his mind perhaps not as lively and sophisticated as those of veteran bureaucrats. Even if you couldn't win against him in battle, you could take him down at strategy. Duan Gao Hong hadn't had much contact with Fu Shen, had only seen him once or twice. Most of his understanding of him came from hearsay and gossip. On top of that, he was getting older and always thinking that the younger generation hadn't yet grown up. Therefore, he had always underestimated him somewhat. But he had forgotten that Fu Shen had gone into battle leading troops at 18. Had he not been smart enough, had he lacked finesse, how could he have quelled the old generals and subordinates, made overconfident by their long service records? Never mind dealing with foreign enemies, it would have been an issue for him to gain a firm foothold against his own people. It is a lot to keep track of everyone sometimes, yes. Or even just to say the names correctly. Fu Shen had over and over again exposed the flaws in his words, not showing this uncle any respect. Duan Gao Hong was forced into a corner by his incisive questions. He had nowhere to retreat to. He had finally stopped being contemptuous of him and gradually faced him squarely as an opponent equal to himself. You have known for some time that Du Lang was one of my people? Fu Shen smiled modestly. No, it hasn't been that long. However, he poses no threat, only occasionally passes along information, and his medical skills are all right, so I've kept him around. An important official planting a spy beside the commander-in-chief of a military force elsewhere. However he looked at it, clearly had ulterior motives. If this had happened to someone else, it certainly wouldn't have ended well, but Fu Shen understood Duan Gao Hong's character. The old fool was only stubborn and inflexible. Du Lang had come to the Beiyuan army primarily to help him, so Fu Shen, playing dumb, had turned a blind eye, keeping Du Lang with him up to the present. Your Highness's spies in the north had two hubs, one Du Lang and the other Taoist Chunyang. After the ambush in Kingshaw Gap, presumably it was because Du Lang disclosed secret information that Taoist Chunyang was able to find that broke an arrow ahead of my people. However it may be, I have to thank your highness for this. Duan Gao Hong said, since you know that his majesty fears you and even didn't stint to order your assassination, why did you save his life at the vast longevity feast? Righteousness doesn't command business. Gentleness doesn't command troops. Soft-heartedness will kill you sooner or later. Fu Shen said with a sigh, when I'm useful, I'm called a benevolent and virtuous commander, and when I'm not useful, I'm called soft-hearted. Whether I'm benevolent or gentle isn't something you can decide by flapping your lips. You brat! Duan Gao Hong was suffocated by anger. Furiously, he said, You are unworthy of being your father's son. These words had absolutely no power to harm Fu Shen. He carelessly agreed. That's right, I'm really not like him. Duan Gao Hong sat in a brief silence, then suddenly said, You aren't like your father. You're more like your second uncle, right? Perhaps, said Fu Shen. Didn't you come to ask me about Autumn Night White? Said Duan Gao Hong. Fine. Tell you about something that happened in the past. I would like to hear more, said Fu Shen. Alright, hang on, guys. Sorry. All right. Duan Gaohong spoke of an event that had taken place in the 4th year of Yun Tai, during the battle between the Beiyuan army and the Eastern Tartars. That autumn, Fu Tianxin was carelessly injured by the poisoned arrow of a Tartar assassin. The injury was a serious one and nearly killed him. The whole army was helpless at the time, and even the imperial physician brought in from the capital was powerless to assist. Fortunately, Guangzhou wasn't far from Yishao, where the Western Tartars lived. The two sides had always had friendly dealings, and there was a Western Tartar itinerant doctor who had a slight friendship with Duan Gao Hong. From the view that anything was worth trying in a desperate situation, Duan Gao Hong invited him to come examine Fu Tingxin. The Eastern and Western Tartars had once been one people, and had only been forced to split into two clans because of the tumult of war. The Western Tartar itinerant doctor Duan Gao Hong did indeed recognize this poison. There was a green scorpion on the grasslands, extremely precious and rare, the stinger of which contained powerful poison, known as the green moon. Though the itinerant doctor couldn't find the corresponding antidote, he had once seen a medicinal plant bought by traveling merchants from Arabia, with flowers of pure white as snow, whose fruits, when ground, produced juice like cow's milk. The Arabs had used this medicine to cure a companion of theirs who had been stung by a poisonous scorpion in the desert. Acting as a go-between for Duan Gao Hong, he got into contact with an Arab merchant. After word passed along many people, Duan Gao Hong learned of that medicinal plant's name, and under the direction of the Arabs found the plant and its seeds in the south. This medicinal plant that had saved Fu Tingxin's life was autumn night white. Autumn night white was very peculiar. If you only ate the juice of its fruit, it could relieve pain and cure all kinds of snake and scorpion poisons. But the chances of becoming addicted were negligible. But if it was processed and inhaled, it would become the addictive white dew powder. Moreover, people who took autumn night white long term would suffer internal lesions, and a small minority of people would ultimately become infected with a sickness, sometimes like plague, that couldn't be cured. They could only wait to die. That sounds like the village. Even more frightening, as soon as this medicinal plant hit the ground and put down roots, not a blade of grass would grow in its vicinity. In the south, autumn night white had always grown in cracks and stones deep in the mountains. The locals viewed it as a poisonous weed. When they saw it, they would immediately cut it down and pull up all of its roots, then use fire to destroy it completely. Only in this way could they prevent it from spreading on a large scale. Duan Gao Hong said, in the 5th year of Yun Tai, after Zhang Yan recovered, the Eastern Tartars' Alma tribe was completely destroyed. Fu Shen's heart instantly skipped. He asked, "What do you mean, Your Highness?" "Your second uncle wasn't as soft-hearted as you imagine," Duan Gao Hong said directly and callously. "Do you think that in order to be a leader of troops, it's enough to learn his mercy?" Right? I really love the mystery piece of this book. I think that's why I like a lot of the Danmei that has become very popular, is that it's not just, oh, it's a romance book. It's like, no, you're going on a mystery clue hunting trip intrigue. And then it's like, oh yeah, romance. Here's some romance. Like, they're cute. Mwah. Like, I know there's a lot more to it than that, but it's nice. You can literally read it for the plot, and then it's like, oh yeah, romance. They're banging in the corner. Oh, okay. And this one's really good too. There's a lot of story. They like to make webs for sure, and it makes rereads all the better. It does, yes. Duan Gao Hong told him that after Fu Tingxin recovered, he asked for all the seeds Duan Gao Hong had collected and sent people to sneak into the pastures of the Alma tribe and sow a large quantity. Some months later, autumn night white sprouted and grew. The Alma tribe's pastures were ruined overnight. Their sheep died in large numbers. Fu Tingxin also caught a group of Eastern Tartars and made them drink water mixed with infected blood, then released them to return to their tribe. Many Alma tribespeople became infected with plague because of this, and finally they were swept clean by the regrouped Beiyuan cavalry, ending in the destruction of the tribe. A debt of blood being paid in blood. In the legends of the Tartars, the symbol of plague is the inconstant plant that refers to autumn night white. Coldly, Duan Gao Hong said, "Do you know now why the Tartars hate the Fu family so deeply?" This particular segment of history hadn't spread very widely. First, this was because it concerned confidential information. Second, it harmed the peace of heaven, so even the official historians didn't dare to record it. Fu Shen had had dealings with the Eastern Tartars for many years. He had heard of the inconstant plant. He had thought it was only a legend, a folk tale. He hadn't thought that such a thing actually existed. In the territory of the Alma tribe, a fire burned for several days and nights. The swaying flowers of the inconstant plant were swallowed by the flames, but its shadow over the grasslands remained forever. Duan Gao Hong said, "When the Arabs first discovered this plant, they called it duar, meaning of which is days. And in the local language of the south, its name is Sanevo, which means the god of sleeping death." Okay. New chapter, hang on. Tomorrow I'm going to be like, hello. Chapter 60. Sighing with emotion, Fu Shen said, "What a sin. A general's reputation was built upon 10,000 corpses. Behind the portrait of the hero hanging high in Qinling Palace, upon Golden Terrace, flickering flames leapt, countless souls of the dead wailed in anguish." Duan Gao Hong nearly fell over in anger at Fu Shen's ill-breeding. Furiously, he said, "When two armies face each other in battle, one must die for the other to live. You pity them? Why not think of the innocent common people who died unjustly at the hands of the Tartars? With your soft-heartedness, how can you possibly accomplish great things in the future?" "Oh?" Fu Shen drawled. In an even tone, he said, "Protecting my home and my country, attacking no one unless they attack me, isn't that enough? What great things is your highness speaking of?" "You—" Duan Gao Hong was at a loss for words. Shortly pointing at his nose in frustration, he scolded, "You were cast aside as soon as you had served your purpose. His Majesty wanted nothing better than for you to die in the Kingshaw Gap, yet you still want to defend the border for him? Even entrenching yourself in place and making yourself king would be better than being subject to his whims. Don't you understand?" "Entrenching yourself in place and making yourself king," Fu Shen repeated thoughtfully. "Just like your highness." There was no question in his words this time. He continued straightforwardly, "Xinyan is far from the emperor and the capital, with people of all ethnicities living side by side, their loyalty the central government limited. You have been operating in Xinyan for many years and have put down deep roots. Even if His Majesty sent people to control you, it would be easy for you to undermine them. In Kingshow City, Kiui-shou City, among the shops and public houses along the street, traveling traders of other nations like Annam, Zenla, and so forth are common. I suppose that Xinyan's income from trade with foreign nations in recent years has been more than enough to supply Xinyan's troops. Duan Gaohong's expression became slightly concerned. Never mind that you also had that god of whatever death in your hands, a business that lets you make big profits from a small investment. Now, without sarcasm, Fu Shen said, if you really did set up shop in Jiangnan, the money would run against the current of the Yangtze River into your honored pockets. Never mind making yourself king. When the time came, if you wanted to make yourself emperor, there would still be no one to stop you. A pack of nonsense, Duan Gaohong said coldly. Fu Shen seemed to be well informed, but actually he was on perilously thin ice. He knew that in his role as an elder, Duan Gaohong wouldn't fight him. But the business of Autumn Night White made him feel that Commandery Prince Ziping was a little nefarious. Fu Shen also couldn't work out what exactly he wanted. If he wanted to stage a rebellion and would insist on dragging Fu Shen down with him, that matter would be hard to handle. Fu Shen considered and then said, earlier, your highness told me about past events on the grasslands. Said that my second uncle once used that whatever god of death to destroy the whole Elma tribe. Why is it that when he was defending Yan Shou later, he didn't use the same move against the Z? His question stumped Duan Gaohong. Only after a brief hesitation did he say, when Zhang Yan was in Beiyuan, I was in Xinyan. Xinyan. I am not aware. Fu Shen nodded understandably. Oh, I see, because you were in Xinan. I don't know why I am having such trouble with Xinan right now. I apologize. Duan Gaohong sensed a kind of veiled hint in his deliberate repetition. Instantly, he had a feeling of prickles running down his back. All his muscles tensed. I see that your highness has wasted this time on me here without saying a single word of truth. Fu Shen shook his head. It was unclear whom he was mocking. Since you won't put your cards on the table, I'll lay out the details for you. My late father and late uncle passed away when I was young. Before I had the chance to gain much experience following them in the army, I was pushed beyond my capabilities to go to war at the northern frontier. Your Highness says that I am an unworthy son of my father, and in fact, that's true. I didn't grow up in imitation of him. Apart from a few superficial trifles, I learned from my uncle. My temper and disposition came from those 7 years I spent at the northern frontier. Fu Shen stopped smiling. So, Your Highness, don't think that listening to a story will turn me into the Fu family member you're hoping for. My hands have taken down uncountable barbarians. I know what profession I'm engaged in. I've never suffered from the delusion that I would be reincarnated into bliss when I died. If I ought to go to hell, then I will, and I've always thought that the same for others. When men of courage and talent have a grievance to exercise, let only their 2 bodies fall and the blood splash no further than 5 steps around. So the saying goes, and that is enough. Whoever commits the sin suffers the retribution. Why drag in those who have nothing to do with it? Because of his own selfish interests, said Duan Gaohong. He harbors a grudge against loyal and upright subjects. Even if he suffers retribution, it would still not be enough to pay back for the sin he has committed. Fu Shen didn't respond at once. He was briefly silent, then finally said with a quiet sigh, "Your Highness, what crime have the people committed?" Duan Gaohong was also silent. When the emperor was enraged, 1,000,000 bodies would fall. The blood would splash for 1,000 li around. But what wrong had those million unjustly dead done? The soldiers who had died in the Kingsha Gap, the commoners who had died at Taoist Chunyang's hands, the innocent people who had died in Jishan village and Guangfang County because of Autumn Night White. Why did they have to die? When God was a little unhappy, it would result in droughts, floods, plagues of locusts, years of famine. When a person of high rank was a little unhappy, it would result in bones exposed in the wilderness, not a cock crowing for 1,000 li around. Mere common people who already had a hard time feeding their families and who had layer upon layer of rules over their head might work hard for half a lifetime only to meet with a single unexpected disaster that would completely destroy their whole family. When your life was valued, your rage would lead to 1,000,000 bodies falling, blood splashing for 1,000 li around. When your life was cheap, you would be one of those million. Because of his lucky birth, Fu Shen hadn't become one of 1,000,000, but neither did he want to become one in 1,000,000. Between killing and being killed, he wanted to walk a third path. "Jing Yuan," Duan Gaohong said suddenly. This time, he wasn't angry, wasn't reproachful. He calmly called Fu Shen's name, seeming to finally put away all pretense and revealing the cold interior beneath solid as a boulder. "What crime have the people committed? Your uncle also once said these words to me." In the 4th year of Yun Tai, Fu Tingxin was injured, and Duan Gaohong found an antidote for him. While treating his poisoning, Duan Gaohong also learned from the shamans in the south about the frightening properties of this plant. This just happened to coincide with a stalemate in the fighting at the border. The Han forces and the Tartar cavalry were deadlocked. Duan Gaohong broke the stalemate with an ingeniously planned maneuver, then went to Fu Tingxin to deliberate, planning to use that medicinal plant to destroy the pastures of the Alma. Combined with the plague, once their backyards were on fire, there would be no difficulty in delivering a resounding blow to the Tartars. Fu Tingxin thought that this method was excessively cruel and sinister. He wouldn't agree no matter what. Duan Gaohong went to Fu Jian and was once again upbraided. Just when he thought that after suffering repeated setbacks there would be no way through by this road, Fu Tingshong came to him and secretly finalized this plan for him. In spring of that year, the Alma tribe's pastures were invaded by the wildly growing autumn night white. Instances of plague were frequent. The whole tribe sank into panic and tumult. Fu Tingshong led troops in an attack, winning a major victory over the Eastern Tartar cavalry at Mount Daqing. The Han forces even penetrated deep into the interior of the grasslands and nearly conquered the Tartars' capital. After this battle, when Duan Gaohong was complacently showing off his accomplishments to Fu Tingxin had only said, "What crime have the people committed?" In autumn of the same year, in Guangzhou, Fu Jian fell critically ill, never to recover. During his illness, he sent a memorial to the court recommending Duan Gaohong to become commander of the Western Expeditionary Army and head for Zinan to put down his rebellion. To this day, many people believe that this move represented Fu Jian removing an outsider. They guessed that he had wanted to leave control of the Beiyuan military forces to his sons. Only Duan Gaohong himself knew that day when Fu Jian had called him to his sickbed. He had said that he was near death and ordered him to swear an oath before the bed that he would take Autumn Night White with him to Zinan and keep a close guard over it, not letting a single seed end up in the Central Plains. Blank face, he had listened as Fu Jian had said, "Peace in the empire, 100 years of prosperity, can be accomplished by your hand or destroyed by your hand. While your surname is not Fu, in your bones you are one with our family. I have campaigned throughout the 4 corners of the world, spent half my life in the saddle. I have only one wish that is still unfulfilled. I want to see peace in the world. Now, I entrust that wish to you." The old general had given him a final order from his deathbed. Duan Gaohong, holding back tears, had kowtowed 3 times before his sickbed. When they had sent off Fu Jian and everything was settled, he had gone to Zinan with the court's army. Zinan had been at peace since the 6th year of Yuntai. He had stood guard for 20 years. During those 20 years, Fu Tingshang was assassinated by the Tartars, Fu Tingxin died in battle, and Fu Shen was charged with leadership in a crisis, leading troops to the northern frontier. Duan Jiuhong was in Zinan, but not for one day did he forget the withering grasses and yellow sands of the north. In the first years after Fu Shen went to the northern frontier, Duan Gaohong watched the war gradually calm, the north become peaceful. He had thought that at the end of over a decade of twists and turns, that peace in the world was about to be realized. But later, he found that he had thought wrong. The Beiyuan cavalry had passed 3 generations of the Fu family. Emperor Yuntai could stand it no longer. The members of the Fu family all died young, but Emperor Yuntai was a long-lived emperor. He sat by and watched as generations after generations of the Fu family accepted the seal of commander-in-chief and went into battle. The Beiyuan army became more and more powerful, and its commanders younger and younger, but he was getting older and feebler. When he turned back to look at his sons and grandsons, there wasn't a single one with a talent for rule, fit to be the master of a generation of resurgence. If this continued, in a decade, in 2 decades, would the empire still belong to the Sun family? When Emperor Yuntai ordered Fu Tingyi to take over the title, and that's his brother, so it's from the second wife that his father married, and he's kind of a lazabout. He thinks he's hot shit, and he's not. But they kind of did like a coup in the Fu family, so they're technically inheriting the title. Yeah. Politics. When Emperor Yuntai and Fu Jian had been a sovereign and minister on good terms, it had been because the court... Technicalities everywhere, yes. Duan Gaohong sensed His Majesty's fear and wariness towards this new young commander of the Beiyuan cavalry. When Emperor Yuntai and Fu Jian had been a sovereign and minister on good terms, it had been because the court had been in a precarious situation, and he had needed to rely on him in matters of war. The reason he had given extremely preferential treatment to Fu Tingshang and Fu Tingxin had been because the two brothers had each other to rely on, and there was also Prince Su sticking his oar in. But the fact that he now dared to take action against Fu Shen again and again was purely because he was taking advantage of his youth and acquiescence, and the current Duke of Ying was a good-for-nothing who might sprout wings and ascend to heaven at any moment. So his family title, he should have gained the title of Duke of Ying. But, yeah. If anything happened, he could do nothing to help. Just in case, Duan Gaohong had sent Du Lang to Fu Shen's side. As the emperor's attempts had become more and more obvious, Duan Gaohong had finally lost hope in so-called peace in the world. He had finally understood that as long as the imperial throne was occupied, the Fu family, as well as himself, could never struggle free of fate. The god of sleeping death that had been sealed in Xinan for 20 years was awakened by its guardian, and had spread east from Jiangchu, following the river, falling upon the landscape of Jiannan like a ghost and putting down roots, covering the earth in its pure white flowers. Commander Prince Zipeng finished pouring out his mind. Slowly exhaling the pent-up staleness in his chest, he said, I have misused what was entrusted to my care, profoundly betrayed the task entrusted to me. When I come to the 9 springs of the underworld, I will be too ashamed to see Duke Fu. As the foremost commandery prince outside the imperial family, for the sake of an entrusted task that was like a mirage, he had guarded the western frontier for 20 years. Fu Shen knew very well that he had done many things wrong, but he was in no position to condemn him. Just as Fu Tianxin had once said, what crimes have the people committed? To Duan Gaohong, now it was Fu Shen's turn. He also could say nothing but this, because he knew that he himself wasn't innocent. On the criminal charges people were most helpless against in this world, one was a fabricated one, one was attracting envy by an excess of talent, and there was yet another one that was, I didn't do the deed, but I was still responsible. Dejectedly, Fu Shen said, I am also too ashamed to see the old fellow. Why don't we go hang ourselves in front of his grave together? Duan Gaohong ignored his ridicule. Since our talk has turned to this, I ought to make everything clear. You know that I have been in Xinan, my reach limited. It has been difficult for me to organize large-scale forces in the capital. That Taoist Chun Yang was able to find a firm foothold in the capital. That's entirely thanks to the repeated assistance of one person. Fu Shen's heart sank. Who? I really do love leaving you on cliffhangers. I mean, I think we still have 2 more chapters. But, like, that is where the chapter ended. Wouldn't have that been funny if we ended right there? No. Nope. That's where the chapter ended. Chapter 61. Duan Gaohong wasn't in the habit of drumming up suspense. He said bluntly, Fu Ting Yi. It was as if a mallet had fallen out of the sky and smashed the Marquise of Jinning into the ground. Fu Shen was completely poleaxed. Forgetting his manners, he raised his voice. Who? It probably didn't sound like that. He probably sounded more like, who? He suspected that Duan Gaohong was lying to him. Otherwise, he had to be hallucinating. The Duke of Ying, your third uncle, having finally managed to shock Fushen, Duan Gaohong was inexplicably a little pleased with himself. Right? It's so dramatic. I agree, Montmartre Rover. I suppose you weren't expecting that? Fu Tingyi, renowned in the capital as the useless third master, a little chicken that had flown out of a phoenix's nest, a middle-aged rich wastrel, obsessed with cultivating immortality, stirring up out the doors even less than a young mistress of a wealthy family. That he had yet to starve to death was entirely down to his lucky birth. Even Fu Shen had no expectations of him, and however diverse the lines of thought of others might be, they still absolutely would have connected him to a major case that had shaken the whole capital. All these years he spent cultivating immortality and practicing Taoism. Has that all been a pretense? Well, actually, he's been in contact with you all along? Fu Shen might have been stunned, but his brain was still working. With a hint from Duan Gaohong, he could tie the sequence of events into a rough outline. Qing Shu Temple had quite a name for the efficacy of its practices in the capital, and Taoist arts were Fu Tingyi's hobby. His comings and goings from Qing Shu Temple naturally wouldn't arouse anyone's suspicion. And whatever Taoist Chun Yang needed in terms of white dew powder and smoking paraphernalia could all first be sent to Fu Tingyi, then handed over by him to Taoist Chun Yang. As a Taoist priest, if Taoist Chun Yang was always in contact with Zinan, it would be easy for him to be exposed. But for the Duke of Ying, this was nothing. No wonder that at the outset Yan Xiaohan and his people hadn't been able to find the source of the drug no matter what. Your third uncle has been concealing his strengths and biding his time for many years, Duan Gaohong said. Chun Yang's actions in the capital were mainly carried out thanks to him. My getting in contact with Shurang happened after you went to the northern frontier. Shurang. But Fu Shen was for once genuinely irritated. Impatiently, he interrupted him. If he was concealing his strengths and biding his time, he ought to have stuck to cultivating his immortality. Why get mixed up in this nasty business? Is it that he's so insulated from the outside world, or is it that he thinks the Duke of Ying Manor isn't collapsing fast enough? Jing Yuan, Duan Gaohong said, hitting the nail on the head. You're the same as the people in the capital. You all think that his current position is down entirely to his lucky birth, right? Isn't it? Fu Shen said angrily. Couldn't he have done something else? No one was stopping him from cultivating immortality. I barely managed to pluck the Duke of Ying Manor out of trouble, but he's in a rush to jump into the fiery pit. Is it an addiction of his? What are you shouting about? Duan Gaohong said, frowning. You don't understand your third uncle. His mother had complications when she was pregnant with him, and he was born premature. So Shurang's health was poor from childhood. His big brother and second brother both made allowances for their little brother, afraid that if he bumped into something it would lead to more mishap. They didn't dare to let him study martial arts. I saw him a few times. As a child, he was skinny and small, didn't talk much, hid in his room all day long, not coming out. Later, Bo Sun and Zhang Yan both went to the northern frontier, and he grew up alone in the capital. He had no particular skills in literacy or martial arts, but he had two talented brothers above him. But the upshot was that the two brothers passed away, one after another. Luckily, he still had a nephew to bear the weight for him. Jing Yuan, you're used to carrying that weight. You don't think it's a burden. But for your third uncle, that ought to have been his responsibility. However inadequate, he's still your family elder. He didn't protect you, and he's always felt very guilty for it. Fu Shen heard a trace of loneliness in his words and instantly understood the guilt that Duan Gao Hong hadn't spoken aloud, identical to Fu Tingyi's. For a time, he was frozen. Fu Shen had gotten to where he was now without relying on anyone. He had long ago become accustomed to walking into the face of difficulties because he knew that no one would be there to shield him from the wind and rain, and hiding would be useless. And since Fu Tingxin had died, the age at which he could pout and beg for mercy from his elders had ended forever. At his present age, even if he were to pretend, he still couldn't pretend to be a pampered junior who could easily bow and yield. Act like he needed care. Enough. Knock it off. It's no use, Fu Shen muttered somewhat uncomfortably. So what? I don't lack for people to love me. Don't you think it's disgusting at your age to still be playing the iron-willed man with tender feelings? Duan Gao Hong didn't respond. A wretched scoundrel, coarse and tough, spoiling all the fun? What was there about a person like this worth loving? Send a message to him, telling him to knock it off. Fu Shen put a hand to his forehead, switching with difficulty to a less peremptory tone. I have my own plans. I don't need the two of you to personally take risks. Have a heart. Look at it as having some pity on your little nephew. While I'm fretting about the Beiyuan army, don't make me also have to split off my attention to worry about the two of you. All right? Those who had served in the Beiyuan cavalry had a particular frankness and sense of identity. So when Fu Shen spoke to Duan Gao Hong from the position of the Beiyuan army's commander-in-chief, he was direct and outspoken, standing on no ceremony, even though Commander Prince Ziping's position was higher than his. But now that they weren't speaking of official positions, and Fu Shen had called himself little nephew, Duan Gao Hong instantly became even more uncomfortable than him. Dryly, he said, "All right." The two of them shared a brief, awkward silence. Duan Gao Hong gave a dry cough. Me too, buddy. Me too. In order to cover up the awkwardness, he stiffly changed the subject and said, "Have you eaten? If you aren't leaving, then how about we drink a few cups?" At the end of his endurance, Fu Shen nodded, then suddenly recalled something. Your Highness, autumn white night, or night white. Once the plague is spread, it's outside of human control, Duan Gao Hong said with a bitter laugh. Autumn night white is the same. Even if I stop letting autumn night white flow out of this very day, what has already gone out will multiply endlessly. Thinking of pinching off the source now is too late. After the Jingshu case, said Fu Shen, the court will raise its assessment of autumn night white's severity. I figure it won't be long before they promulgate a decree forbidding people to privately plant autumn night white. What has already been disseminated cannot be controlled, but I suppose that the method of refining white dew powder is still in your Majesty's hands, isn't it? Duan Gao Hong nodded. Fu Shen said, If you stop now, I don't dare to guarantee whether there will be peace in the world. But if you do not stop, there will certainly not be peace in the world. I hope your Highness will think carefully about what is really important here. Well, white dew powder had yet to become the most highly valued of Xenon's financial resources, that outcome wasn't far off. Asking Duan Gao Hong to make up his mind at once to cut off his arm was unfeasible. Fu Shen didn't rush him. He left it at this. The two of them spent the night drinking. For half the night, Fu Shen had drunk Commander Prince Ziping tugging at him and chattering about the Bayonne army's history. Dizzy, he pitched headfirst onto the bed in the guest room, feeling that he had overestimated the degree of Duan Gao Hong's steadiness. When the sky had just begun to brighten, there was a sudden clap of thunder outside. Hu Shen had been sleeping soundly, but for some reason the thunderclap seemed to go from his ears directly to his heart. He abruptly opened his eyes, his heart beating wildly for no reason. The 29th day of the 4th month, night in the capital. The imperial city was silent as death. All the palaces had their doors and windows tightly shut. A few palace maids and eunuchs were trembling as they crouched, huddled in the corners of the palace. Only in front of Yangshin Hall was everything brightly lit. Prince Jin, Sun Yun-chun, wearing armor with a team comprised of the 10 South Yemen Guards and Prince Jin Manor's elite troops behind him, stood facing the North Yemen Imperial Guards across a lengthy distance. Wei Shushou put his hand on his sword, his furious eyes wide open. Sternly, he said, "The Emperor's quarters are sacrosanct. No one may enter without an imperial order. Your Highness, Prince Jin, do you intend to rebel against the Emperor?" Sneering, Sun Yun-chun said, "This watchdog dares to bark in front of me? Beat it!" In the firelight, General Wei's features were cold and hard as iron, but a large portion of his back was soaked in cold sweat. At 7 in the evening, Prince Jin had led troops straight through the Chengtian Gate, the main gate of the palace. First, he had gone to the Eastern Palace to kill the Crown Prince, and then he had gone directly for Yangshin Hall. All 10 South Yemen guards had defected in favor of Prince Jin. Wei Shushou had only received word when they had reached Xuanfu Gate. He had hastened along with North Yemen Imperial Guard to protect the Emperor, finally reaching Yangshin Hall ahead of Prince Jin and barring the way. Prince Jin had a well-crafted plan. The southern Yemen had defected to the opposite side, and the few soldiers of the North Yemen Imperial Guards couldn't hold out for long. The Wei Shushou was no coward when it came to battle. Looking at it objectively, even he thought that Prince Jin's rebellion was almost certain to succeed. "Who's out there?" The hall doors slowly opened, and an aged and dignified voice sounded amidst the firelight and the night. Emperor Yuntai's figure appeared at the door of Yangshin Palace. "Prince Jin, what are you doing?" Sun Yun-chun stepped forward and loudly said, "Father, the Crown Prince Sun Yun-liang was plotting rebellion, harboring evil intentions. When I became aware of his plot, I feared it would cause trouble, and therefore immediately led troops into the palace to protect you. Now the traitor has been executed, and I have come to notify you, Father." Everyone present with a discerning eye knew that the Crown Prince was only a wretch, and his death was unjust. Prince Jin had played the scene well, actually managing to speak those righteous and stern, hollow words without batting an eye or skipping a beat. Emperor Yuntai said, "If the traitor has been executed, then return to your manor." Behind his back, Prince Jin made a gesture. At once, a purple-clothed official stepped forward and fell to the ground, prostrating himself. He said, "The Crown Prince behaved wrongfully, and he has been killed by Prince Jin. The country was unstable to begin with. The people's mood is fixed. Your Majesty, look down and behold public sentiment. passed the throne to Prince Jin in order to satisfy the wishes of man and heaven. Chu Jing. Emperor Yuntai shot him a cold glance and said, "Where are the imperial guards?" "Father, I advise you not to rely on them." Beneath the unsteadily flickering firelight, Sun Yunchun's smile appeared unusually twisted, making one think of a viper sticking out its tongue. "All the South Yemen guards are already taking their orders from me. Never mind that your trusted aide Yan Xiaohan is not in the capital. Even if he were here, the North Yemen Imperial Guards would still have no hope in a fight." He deliberately paused for a moment, then raised his voice and said, "The Tang Shou troops are already on their way to the capital to do all they can to serve the throne. I hope you will make your decision soon, Father." As Sun Yunchun finished speaking, a young eunuch ran in staggeringly from outside the palace gates. His hat had even fallen askew as he ran. Gasping for breath, he said, "Your Majesty! Your Majesty! A report from the envoy of the capital's barracks. Tens of thousands of men and horses are coming in the direction of the capital. Commander Wang has already taken the Runfeng and Lai Lai barracks ahead to forestall them." Emperor Yuntai took a step back from the shock of this sudden news and collapsed weakly against the eunuch supporting him. "Your Majesty!" The 30th day of the 4th month, outside of Beiyuan's Liangkoyu Pass, a carriage from the Ji clan Wuluhu, that's fun to say, tribe had stood in line for a long time at the mountain pass. Spring came late in the north, and mornings were still very cold. The government soldier guarding the pass, wrapped in a thick jacket, wiped the condensed water droplets from his eyelashes and yawned. He muttered, "Pretty early this year." The Ji man escorting the carriage drew near, smiling brightly. He removed his hand from his sleeve and pulled a handful of enormous pearls put a handful of enormous pearls into the soldier's hand. The soldier froze. He didn't take the pearls and shoved his hand back. "Our general doesn't let us accept these. Take them back." The Ji clan's incursions had failed, and they had been beaten back several times by the Beiyuan cavalry. Now they paid a tribute to Great Zhou every year. The Wuluhu tribe was rich in eastern pearls. As a rule, they offered a tribute of eastern pearls to the capital every year in the 5th or 6th month. This year they had come before it was even the 5th month. Well, the Beiyuan soldier responsible for inspecting the annual tribute thought this was a little strange. He didn't think much of it. He walked in front of the carriage and raised the tarpaulin for a crate with the tip of his sword. He said, "Open the crate." Several Ji got out of the carriage smiling. They undid the knots and opened the lid of the crate. A whistle, which startled the birds, pierced into the woods. A whistle, which startled the birds perched in the woods, caused them to go into flight. When the lid of the crate was removed, there was a dazzling display of silvery white. The crate didn't contain eastern pearls. It contained coldly gleaming weapons. The escorted Ji gave up their pretense and pulled swords from the crate, swarming towards the soldiers guarding the Liangkoyu Pass. Amid a terrifying clamor of slashing, the Beiyuan soldier who had refused the pearls had a bloody wound cut into his chest. He fell face up among the rising dust. His stiff, icy fingers moved with difficulty. He pulled a firework from his belt and shakily pulled the fuse. A pop! A Z who had discovered his attempt had stabbed backwards. The blade penetrated flesh and blood, piercing his heart. At the same time, the signal representing a sneak attack rose high into the air and exploded into blood-colored fireworks in their gradually slacking pupils. The Bayuan soldier's body spasmed. His eyes faced the sky. He exhaled his last cold breath, dying discontent. On the 30th day of the 26th year of Yuntai, in the morning court assembly, Emperor Yuntai's son Shun read out an imperial decree before the court, saying that he was passing his throne to Prince Jin, son Yunchun. On the same day, the Ji clan's Wuluhu tribe, while conveying eastern pearls, launched a sneak attack on the Liangkoi Pass defenses. Not long after, a large number of Ji soldiers came south to invade. The Bayuan cavalry urgently transferred troops to rush to the rescue. Storm clouds were approaching. The threat to the northern frontier of 7 years earlier was about to return once more. Man, that would have been such a good spot to end it, but we've got one more chapter left. Is it one or two? I can never tell. Hang on. It's one. But man, that would have been such a perfect place to end it. Like, war is about to begin. All that. Perfect cliffhanger. Now we'll probably have one that's a bit weirder. I bet we're about to go back to our boys. Oh. All right. T and then chapter 62. We won't know until we read. Chapter 62. In over a century since Great Zhou's founding, Sun Yunchun was the unluckiest emperor in its history without exception. The first day he became emperor, before he could worship at the imperial ancestral temple, before a ceremony could be performed, when the civil and military officials had yet to work out what was going on, when he hadn't even sat on the throne long enough to warm it, he received urgent military intelligence sent from the northern frontier. That would suck. Hey, I planned this coup. It actually worked. I'm about to become emperor. Oh, shit. Now we're feuding. Oh, good. Soon after, the old neighbors all exploded like a swarm of bees. The Ji clan's Wuluhu tribe had launched a sneak attack on Liangkoi Pass. The Chile, Kuyale, Chile tribe joined forces with Parhe. Oh god, it's going to be one of those chapters. A vassal state in the northeast of Great Zhou, and dispatched troops to assault the provinces of Pingshou and Jishou. Thank God. The Tartars, who had been chastened only the year before, regrouped and came back stronger, invading Tongshou and Yushou in turn, and were aimed straight at Bayuan's western line of defense, Yuanshou. The Bayuan cavalry was checked on both sides. The situation was critical. On the 3rd day of the 5th month, Jishou was in crisis. On the 5th day of the 5th month, Jishou's city fell. Pingshou was in crisis, and in the northwest, Tongshou and Yushou requested support from the Bayuan army. On the 12th day of the 5th month, Pingshou city fell, and its military commander, Prince Su, fell dead in battle. The nearby provinces and countries had no strength to resist the enemy. The defending soldiers fell while keeping watch. The enemy forces were only 1,000 li from the capital. The Tangshou troops, which ought to have resisted the enemy along the only road available to them, for the sake of aiding Sun Yunchun in forcing his father to abdicate, were still outside the capital, facing off against the capital barracks. On the 13th day of the 5th month, the Ningxiu forces defected, and the northwestern line of defense was broken. The Tartars and the Ji, advanced in steps, separately bearing down on the capital from the west and east. The Beiyuan cavalry was caught in between, almost isolated. There was chaos in court. Never mind mustering army provisions and making an inventory of their combat readiness. They hadn't even finished arguing about who the emperor ought to be. On the 15th day of the 5th month, after galloping day and night, Fu Shen finally reached the main camp outside of Yanshou City. When the Beiyuan soldier guarding the barracks saw him, he nearly burst into tears. Fu Shen was mentally and physically exhausted from racing here and didn't even have the strength to raise a hand to support him. He found a tent at random and sat down. Concisely and comprehensively, he said, "Pour me a cup of water, and which general is in this camp? Tell him to come see me." The soldiers went to carry out his orders. Fu Shen used this moment of leisure to close his eyes and rest, stretching his legs out beside him. He had no more sensation from his calves down. All of his bones seemed tired enough to fall apart. He was dirty and dejected, his face haggard. Casually brushing his sleeve could have dislodged a couple ounces of earth. He had heard about Prince Jin forcing an abdication and seizing the throne while in Zinan. Before he could even feel astonished, he had shortly after received word of the attack on Liangkoi Pass. This time, Fu Shen absolutely couldn't sit still. Duan Gao Hong had advised him to sit and wait for news. Perhaps it was only a routine disturbance. But as soon as Fu Shen heard about the Wu Luhu tribe using the Eastern Pearl conveyance as an opportunity to launch a sneak attack, he had immediately recalled the box of blood-splattered Eastern Pearls Yu Qiaoting had shown him when he had been married earlier that year. There was no doubt about it. That had been a naked provocation sent by the Ji. The barbarians refused to give up their evil designs. They had already made plans. Seeing that he was worried, Duan Gao Hong couldn't resist saying, "Well, you are the Beiyuan commander in name. You've already handed over responsibility for military affairs. When the sky falls, it's up to the tall to hold it up. Have you forgotten about the state of your legs? What's the use of returning? Are you really planning to go into battle and slay the enemy yourself?" "Never mind that it's only my legs that were broken," Fu Shen said expressionlessly, suppressing his anger. "Even if I had only one breath remaining and had to crawl, I would still crawl back. These are my comrades, Your Highness. The weight of my late father and uncle have, in your heart, the men of the Beiyuan army are the same to me." Duan Gao Hong paused, then said, "If you want to return, of course it's up to you. But as for Great Zhou's court, I'm not going to pay it the least bit of mind. Even if there's a crisis in Beiyuan, Zinan still won't send troops to the rescue. Jing Yuan, think it over." "That's exactly what I wanted." Fu Shen looked up and shot him a glance. Coolly, he said, "Look after your own turf, Your Highness. Your little nephew has no expectations of you to begin with." So he set off from Kueishou that same day, with his heart in his throat, and galloped day and night, racing from Zinan back to Beiyuan. While he was going north to the Central Plains, news of the fall of Pingshou and the death of Prince Su in battle spread. Fu Shen missed a breath and nearly fell from horseback. There was great sorrow in his heart and a sour taste in his throat. He abruptly choked out a mouthful of blood. After Fu Tingxin had become trapped in an encirclement and having used up his strength died in battle, Prince Su had remained unmarried. He had requested to become the vassal prince of Pingshou, the place closest to Beiyuan's garrison and the border. In all these years, not for one day had he forgotten Fu Tingxin. Okay. Maybe I read way too much Danmei, but I'm picking up a romantic subtext from that whole paragraph right there. Like, I'm sensing some feelings right in there between Prince Su and his uncle. 'Cause, like, that was not subtle. Like, am I crazy? Like, if I vaguely remember, like, yep, it's gay. It's very gay. Okay. All right. Better? I think it's better. I had to reconnect. Are we good? I'm so sorry about that. I called. We're back? Okay. I had to reset. Well, my dad reset the internet and I reloaded the page. I'm still working through just what needs to be done. I think I don't want to end the stream accidentally, so I'm always so cautious to actually like reload the page. So I'm like, is this gonna end the stream? Will I have to do what I did that one time where I made a whole new stream? But I think I've got it covered now. I reset the internet like right before this, so I was like, it'll be fresh, it'll be clean, it'll be great. No. And right when we got to the very gay, like, come on. Don't be cutting out at the very gay. All right. So we're going to reset back to before the very gay. Just in case. While he was going north to the Central Plains, news of the fall of Ping Shou and the death of Prince Su in battle spread. Fu Shen missed a breath and nearly fell from horseback. There was great sorrow in his heart and a sour taste in his throat. He abruptly choked out a mouthful of blood. After Fu Tingxin had become trapped in an encirclement and having used up his strength, died in battle, Prince Su had remained unmarried. He had requested to become the vassal prince of Pingshou, the place closest to Beiyuan's garrison and the border. In all these years, not for one day had he forgotten Fu Tingxin. Now, after being separated for many years by heaven and earth, they could at last meet again in the underworld. So gay. That mouthful of blood fell into his palm. Fu Shen seemed to have been stung. He closed his eyes tightly. Prince Su's death was a jab at the guiltiest and most fearful sore spot in his heart. Throughout his headlong rush, Fu Shen hadn't dared to think of how Yan Xiaohan would react when he learned of all this. Since determining to go north instead of going to Jingshu, he had known that he had once again abandoned Yan Xiaohan. The missed time in the past could be excused as love having yet to awoken, but now that his feelings had bloomed and blossomed, could he still pretend that he had no attachments, that the only one he needed to look after was himself? If he, like Fu Tingxin, died in battle at the northern frontier, what would Yan Xiaohan do? General! Yu Qiaoting, jingling and clanking, lifted the tent flap and swept up in front of Fu Shen like a wind. In a tearful voice, he wailed, "My dear General, what are you doing back here?" Fu Shen wearily sat up straight. "Don't waste words. Tell me concretely about this situation." Yue Qiaoting wiped away non-existent tears and sat down next to him. Gloomily, he said, "It's a long story." After hearing him recount the course of the palace coup and current situation on the battlefield, Fu Shen pinched the corner of his brow and let out a deep sigh. Yu Qiaoting saw something strange about his expression and hesitantly said, "General?" "The timing is too precise," Fu Shen said. "No sooner had Prince Jin staged his coup that the Liangkoi Pass was attacked. However unlucky he might be, He couldn't be that unlucky. Most likely he fell into their trap. There must be a traitor among Prince Jin's people. First they manifested a power struggle, and then they took advantage of the opening to invade. Parhay has always been content when it's hot, with its lot. Parhay has always been content with its lot. It hasn't made trouble for many years. Now that it's mustered troops and risen in revolt along with the Ji, afraid they must have been almost certain of success to be willing to step in. The matter of the Tang Shou forces is even stranger. Tang Shou's military commissioner Yang Shu had just been removed, and they were already rushing to cast aside the crown prince in favor of Prince Jin. Do you think they're headless flies bumping around at random? Were they deliberately play-acting to deceive that big idiot, Prince Jin? That's right, Yu Qiaoting agreed. He is a big idiot. Before Fu Shen could scold him, he quickly added, It's not just the Tang Shou forces. The Ning Shou forces simply defected. Now the defenses have fallen both in the northeast and the northwest, and we're caught in the middle. From the looks of it, the Wuluhu tribe is planning to put their whole heart into dragging the Beiyuan army to its death. If we can't extract ourselves, the Chiali tribe and Parhe will reach the capital soon. Yes, Fu Shen. It's also the idea the Tartars have. 7 years ago they learned their lesson in blood, and they don't dare to cross swords with the Beiyuan cavalry directly. If they send only a portion of their people to stall us and go around the Beiyuan army to strike at other places, they'll have a much easier fight. Yu Qiaoting said, They put us in an impracticable position between them. It's a deadlock. If we apply force on one side, they'll immediately pounce on the other side. Everyone knows the Beiyuan army is invincible, Fu Shen muttered. When I first returned military authority over Ganshou and Ningshou to the court, His Majesty was afraid that there would be remaining ties among former subordinates, so he transferred the original generals elsewhere. Beiyuan has been solid all these years, but the long line of the northern border is full of small holes. It was His Majesty who wanted to isolate Beiyuan. Without him, the Tartars and the Ji wouldn't have been able to play out this strategy of defeating us one by one. What did reaping what you sow mean? Precisely this. Emperor Yuntai had worried that the Beiyuan army would become too powerful, worried that the Fu family would become unruly, worried that 100 years from now his sons and grandsons wouldn't be able to hold on to the throne. So he had pulled the Beiyuan army to pieces and turned Fu Shen into a half-cripple. And what was the outcome? Ningshou's forces had defected, foreigners and barbarians were invading on a large scale. He had been kicked off the throne by his own son, and that stupid son had welcomed the wolf inside, opened the door to thieves, put the capital beneath the talons of jackals and wolves. Tearing down his own defenses, Yuan Qiaoting said with a sigh. On my way from Kiaoshou, I saw many people taking their families and belongings and fleeing south. What is the situation concerning the capital now? Fu Shen asked. Yu Qiaoting lowered his voice and cautiously spat out 2 words. Being relocated. I figured that's about right, Fu Shen said. The capital is too close to the northern frontier. It'd only take 3 to 5 days for the fighting to reach the gates. We can't get away, and Prince Jin has only the South Yemen Imperial Guards at his disposal. That won't even make a snack for the invaders. The capital can't be defended. Sooner or later, it has to be moved. What about us? Said Yu Qiaoting. We'll stay here to hold them up. Let those in the capital catch their breaths a little, Fu Shen said. Let's see what Prince Jin decides. We'll prepare in advance to concentrate our forces and break out of the encirclement. Yu Qiaoting had thought that he would want to fight to the last drop of blood. He hadn't expected Fu Shen to have such an idea. He said in astonishment, "General? What is Prince Jin? An idiot burning himself to death playing with fire?" Fu Shen snorted. "I'm a married man. That I haven't rebelled is already giving him more respect than he deserves. Does he want me to also take the men of Beiyuan to die? He can keep dreaming." Yu Qiaoting said, But what? If the capital falls, Yanshao will be completely surrounded. When they catch us like a turkey in a jar and we go with our heads held up to see our ancestors, they'll probably beat us from the underworld all the way back to the land of the living. Yu Qiaoting exhaled slowly. "Yes, sir." Fu Shen patted him on the shoulder. Qing Heng, while the Green Hill lasts, there will be wood to burn. As long as we have Beiyuan's elite soldiers in our hands, we'll have the opportunity to regroup and come back stronger. Yu Qiaoting left with a heavy heart. Fu Shen sat in his tent, completely exhausted. He turned his head to look west, where the setting sun was like a raging flame. His upright back had at some fixed point finally bowed. "I can't die." He was whispering to himself for someone else's benefit. "Wait for me." Fu Shen had overestimated Sun Yunchun's luck. On the 18th day of the 5th month, the enemy forces reached Miyun and joined the Tangshan forces. The capital barracks withdrew to a defensive position in Huairou. That unlucky idiot Prince Jin finally incurred the public's wrath and was killed by General Cao Fengchen of Right Shenwu Guard. The North Yemen Imperial Guards made a clean sweep of Prince Jin's party and publicly decapitated the Ji spy who had been working with Prince Jin. His head was hung high on top of the city wall and exhibited to the public. Emperor Yuntai paid his respects in person at the Imperial Ancestral Temple, kowtowing bareheaded, announcing his grief before his ancestors. Then he went to court and ordered a eunuch to proclaim an edict moving the nation's capital to Chang'an. That afternoon, imperial guards, lightly supplied and in small number, left by the Qingshao gate, escorting Emperor Yuntai, fleeing to take refuge in Shu. The next day, Fu Shen in Yanshao received a secret edict from a phalanx guard that had risked his life to get to him. On it was only one sentence: "Stay or go, it is up to you." On the 19th day of the 5th month, there was chaos in the capital. The officials and the people fled in a hurry. Several roads were blocked and people trampled each other. On the 20th day of the 5th month, the capital barracks retreated in disorder and the invaders entered the court. Several days earlier, in Jiangnan's Li Lian, father has already given the throne to Prince Jin. Prince Qi was so angry his hands shook. He paced several circles around the room and cried, "Men, prepare the horses. I will be returning to the capital at once." "Calm your anger, your highness," Yan Shaohan, standing beside him, immediately counseled. "Do not be anxious. Since Prince Jin was able to kill the crown prince and force his majesty to abdicate in his favor, he must have backing. If you return now without any preparation, it will be no different than walking into a trap. In my humble opinion, it would be better to wait and observe the situation, then make plans." The hot blood had gone to Prince Qi's head. When Yan Xiaohan held him back, his anger gradually abated, and he calmed down bit by bit. To the attendants who had come at his call, he said, "Go check for news from the capital and learn what changes have been had in the palace. Report to me at once." Long after, Yan Xiaohan regretted this more than once. If the flow of time could have been reversed, he certainly would have boxed his own ears and eaten the wait and observe the situation. What did he care whether Prince Qi lived or died? Anyone who wanted the throne could have it. Princes were welcome to go fight it out, as long as he could return to the capital, return to his general's side. So gay! Yan Xiaohan had no idea that when he waited and observed, what would come would be the ruin of the country, the loss of territory, and a lengthy separation. Boom! And that's where we end it for this week. Or no, not this week, just tonight. We'll still be doing this Thursday. But see what I mean about them really loving to leave cliffhangers on the chapters? Like, they've done this every single time. That was a pretty good session, though. Other than the internet being punky. I have a feeling we are about to read some intense pining the next session. Especially with that last line of a lengthy separation. Yeah. We are probably going to see at least one pining episode aspect from Yan Xiaohan when I was about to say without a cure acts up, the white dew powder acts up. Yeah. Cool to join this time. I appreciate the read, and feels like we're overdue with all this drama. Yeah. No, you joined at definitely a very dramatic time. We had a lot of really sweet feelings in some of the other episodes. This one's definitely a lot more of the intrigue drama aspect. But thank you so much for joining. I hope you're able to make maybe the next stream, or if not that, then some of the other streams. I appreciated your comments and just you being here. For all of you. I enjoy doing this. It's a lot of fun. I hope my voice wasn't too raspy for everybody and things came out clearly. Hopefully by Thursday I won't sound like this. I'm doing what I can to treat it. Nice. Sounds good. Sour sores. Sour sore. But yeah, we'll be doing our usual Thursday stream at 8 CST. So, it will be chapters 63 through 68. Yeah. So we will do that Thursday at our usual time. I hope that all of you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your evening and days up to and through Thursday. And on that note, I will say good night.